Hello everyone, welcome back to the Software Engineering Approaches to Human Computer Interaction course. Today we will connect requirements to data gathering methods. Our main goal is to learn about establishing requirements and how it is captured through different data gathering methods. So this is going to be a bit lengthy lecture. I want you to be patient and move forward. So, to start with, why requirements matter. To answer this question, a very good example is the Ford Excel and its failure in the automotive industry. So, they threw a lots of new technologies and lots of great brains at the development and design of Excel too, but no one really had a clear vision for what the car was supposed to be. To make matters worse, the first cells built were plagued with production problems and eventually enraging the dealers. The public didn't really understand the bizarrely styled, badly named, poorly convinced car either. Whatever small chance of success the Excel had when it debuted in 1958 was killed by an economic recession. To their credit, Ford executives realized how much of a failure they had on their hand, killing the Excel brand at the end of 1959. So the key idea is that building the wrong thing, no matter how well your design or build, it will still fail. Identifying requirements early keep us aligned with the real needs and prevent expensive misses, eventually prevents the project failure. So requirements state what the product must do or how it must perform very clearly, specifically, and unambiguously. We often use templates, so every requirement has an ID, rational, and fit criterion. Templates reduce ambiguity and ease traceability. A very common template for the requirements are the Voler template, like this one. So Agile treats requirement as evolving, um, for example, user stories, incremental um, requirement analysis, what that works well for many systems, but critical or large multi-team systems still need pre-delivery analysis and stable interfaces. Functional requirements describe services and behaviors, how the system reacts to input, what it must do, and what it must not do. For example, think about login, task flows, business rules, device behaviors, etc. On the other hand, non functional requirements set constraints or qualities of the system. So, for example, performance, standards, timing process, etc. Usually system wide, and they make functional requirements usable, safe, and more scalable. So, both of them are equally important. So, functional here is an example of functional versus non-functional requirements. For example, um, of a functional requirement is, say, a system must send an email whenever a certain condition is met. For example, the if you or place an order, it will send you a confirmation email. This is the functional requirement, and the non-functional requirement would be that if your order is placed, then the system must send you the email within 12 hours. So this is the non-functional requirement. Stakeholders are anyone affected with a legitimate interest. For example, the end holders, managers, owners, externals, anyone you can imagine that is related to that system. So we will identify them early to avoid any blind spots later. Power versus interest, greed. So this greed is a quick way to decide who we involve, how often, and for what. So power means the ability to approve, block, or set policy, and interest means how much the outcome touches their work or goal. We list roles, not names. Give each a fast 1 to 5 for power and interest and drop them on the 2 by 2. So here is how to act on it: high power and high interest. Um, Manage them closely, bring them into reviews and trade offs. High power and low interest, keep them satisfied with short, outcome focused updates. Low power and high interest, keep informed, invite them to research, beta analysis, and release notes. And finally, low power and low interest, monitor and track the milestones, don't spam them. So, very quick tips: revisit the grid each milestone because positions can change, and note a one line reason next to each dot so the placement is defensible. So here is a class activity. This is actually a case study. I want you to understand the case study and identify the functional and non-functional requirements of the scenario and identify all the stakeholders that you can think of. And finally, you choose the top 8 stakeholders that you feel are the most important and place them in the quadrants of the power, interest, greed, and a sentence rationale for the stakeholders. So you need to submit a discussion board that that includes the list of functional and non-functional requirements, 2 by 2 grid diagram for power, interest, and a table listing your top stakeholders with rationale. And your table should have the fields like stakeholders, power, interest, and the rationals. Requirements elicitation is messy, and here is why. First, the stakeholders often don't know what they really want. They know their pain, not the solution. So our job is to probe with real tasks and examples, and then people describe needs in their own language: finance, ops, legal. So we translate terms into shared definitions and confirm with examples. And thirdly, different groups will conflict. What saves cost for one team may add work for another. We surface those trade offs early and agree on priorities, and then organizational and political factors shape requirements, budgets, policies, tariffs, etc. We map who has power and who's affected so there are no surprises later. And finally, requirements change, new stakeholders appear, markets shift, and ideas evolve. So we should expect change, and version our requirements and revisit them each after each milestone. If we do those things: clarify language, expose conflicts, account for politics, and then plan for the change, we turn a chaotic process into a controlled one. So the requirement elicitation and analysis process is iterative one. It evolves through discover, classify, and prioritize or negotiation phase, and then finally specify. It's a cyclic process, and each pass clarifies and stabilizes requirements. So, process activities includes discovery through talking to stakeholders, learn domain rules, etc., and then classification, cluster into themes, prioritization and negation, resolve conflicts, and then rank, and finally specification, document for the next cycle. We will now focus on how to gather the requirements. Some major methods are interview, questionnaire, observation, ethnography, and contextual inquiry, and documentation study. Most failures start at the requirement stage. Getting this right saves time later in design, build, and test. So why bother? Because requirements definition is the stage where failure occurs most commonly. Establishing requirements, what do users want versus need? Use data to refine, clarify, rescope the goal, output, and stable set justified by evidence. Before we design anything, we need to know who our users are. Uh, for example, their language, their education, comfort with technology, where they use it, and any access needs. Then think about how they will use it. If they are the novice user, we guide them with clear prompts, step by step flows, safe defaults, and easy undo. So if they are experts, we get out of the way and give them the power. So we give them direct access, batch actions, keyboard commands, and we do the minimal interruptions. If there are frequent users, the speed wins, for example, shortcuts, saved preferences, and predictable layouts. If they are casual or infrequent users, keep it obvious with plain language and clear menu paths so they can reorient fast. The rule of thumb is to pick a primary group to optimize for and then add options or modes to support the others. So, personas are fiction characters which you create based up on your research to represent the different user types that might use your service, product, site, or brand in a similar way. Creating personas will help you understand your users' need, their experience, their behaviors, and goals. It can help you recognize that different people have different needs and expectations, and it can also help you identify with the user you are designing for. Personas make the design task at hand less complex. They guide your ideation process and they can help you to achieve the goal of creating a good user experience for your target user group. So when you are designing your persona, bring them to life with a name, their characteristics, their goals, their background, etc. So so this is an example of persona, how it is designed. Um, and here is a class activity for you to design a persona or build a persona. And what you need to do is you need to identify demographic and design a persona using that. So you can use this app or you can use anything that you prefer to design the persona template, and you need to submit it in the discussion board and also comment in your friend's submission. So next we moving to the gathering methods. So there are a few core ways to gather data. For example, the key idea is to talk to people, watch them, or ask at a scale, and inspect artifacts or prototypes. So there are some methods to achieve these. We will see those in the next lectures. So to start with, the interviews, they are very common method of data gathering. Interviews surface goals, pain, language, and interviews can be remote or in person. They are great for early exploration and can be paired with observation later. So interviews can be designed in few way. For example, unstructured interviews have no script. They are great for read stories but hard to repeat. And then structured interviews follow fixed questions, easy to compare but can miss depth. And then semi-structured uses a short guide plus follow-ups, and the best balance for most projects. And focus groups are group interviews useful for shared norms and language, but watch for a peer influence. So the rule of thumb is unstructured early to explore, and use semi-structured for core elicitation, and use structured when you need consistency, and do a focus group to surface perceptions. So, when you write interview questions, think in two buckets. Close questions that have fixed answer, for example, yes or no, true or false, like those. Or multiple choice, for example, they are great for counting and easy analysis. And then there is open questions or open-ended questions that let the people explain in their own words, and they're great for stories, reasons, and surprises. So keep questions short and single purpose, avoid jargon they may not know, and don't lead them swap why do you like for what works well and what doesn't. Watch your own biases, including gendered language. Use closed items to measure open ones to understand. Next, moving on to the questionnaires. Questionnaires work best with other methods, like when you mix them with other data gathering methods. They may generate both statistics and conversations, and they scale to large disappeared groups. And they are great when they have specific questions to verify. So, the idea is to keep them short, pilot once, and then send. So, as I said, you can ask closed or open questions. Closed questions are easier to analyze, and can be auto processed. They scale well and can be delivered by paper, email, or the web, uh, to a large group of people. So, sampling sometimes can be critical, especially when the sampling size is unknown and there might be a bias. A good approach is to keep it short and compare the results with other methods to validate. Sequence your questionnaire so it flows. First, group similar questions and then put them in a logical order, and moving from general to specific. Start with demographics to warm people up, save the sensitive or difficult items for the end, and put open ended questions at the last so they don't slow the rest of the survey or rest of the process. In that way, respondents build a momentum and your data quality improves. On response formats, use yes or no checkboxes for binary facts. Uh, checklists when multiple options may apply, and rating scales for intensity. Likert items run from strongly disagree to strongly agree, usually 5 to 6 points. And semantic differentials use adjective pairs like fair, biased, or weak, strong, and include an open ended box when you need explanation. Most importantly, make options manually exclusive and um, exhaustive. Avoid overlaps. For example, if you are using age group 1 to 25, the next age group should be 26 to 55, not 25 to 55. And always add other or not appropriate options in your options or checklists. And now moving on to survey. Surveys are structured set of questions we send to many people to collect specific information. They are great for measuring patterns at scale. They work best after interviews or observation have surfaced themes, so we can test those ideas broadly. um, Again, the idea is similar. When you design, keep them short, sample carefully to avoid bias, and always it's a good idea to test or do a pilot once to catch confusing items. Next is observation. Observation can be done in two ways. First, the direct, and then the indirect. So, direct means watching real work in the field or in a controlled lab. Choose your participants level, for example, insider or outsider, and use framework or ethnography when you need depth. And indirect means diaries, interaction logs, remote videos, photos, etc. They are great for logging current tasks over time, and always structure what you look for and get consent. So, starting documentation, this is a fast way. This is cheap and very precise. It includes manuals, SOPs, and policies, shows the official steps, rules, and regulations. They are great for understanding legislation and getting background without using stakeholders' time. But don't use docs in isolation. Work as written often differs from work as done. Treat documents as a starting map and then confirm in interviews or observations or other data gathering method that includes the users. Moving on to ethnography. Ethnography is a stance, not just a method. We immerse ourselves in the user setting and use techniques like participants' observation and interviews. Our role can range from outsider observer to insider participants. And then we collect comments, incidents, and artifacts over time. And while video or log analysis is rich, it's also time consuming. Use ethnography when you need the truth of work as done, not just work as described, always with clear consent and privacy in place. Next is contextual inquiry. Contextual inquiry is a design oriented field interview. We go to the user's actual workplace and watch real tasks for about 2 to 3 hours. And we basically have four main principles when we do the contextual study. For example, the context, the partnership, the interpretation, and the focus. We will see how. So, to start with, you can think it as a master apprentice relationship. How they work, we observe and ask short, concrete questions like, "What are you doing here?" Or, "Can you show me that? What is that?" Like this type of conversation. The participants are the master and you are the apprentice. So, continuing the contextual inquiry relationship, um, though that was a good example, but it's not quite the master or apprentice relationship. The goal is not to learn to do the task. Instead, the goal is to learn how the participants does the task. So the four principles to guide us is the context, see the real environment, tool interpretations, and then the partnership, for example, sit alongside and learn together, not just ask them random questions. And then interpretation, check our take in the moment. So the delay is due to X, right? This kind of questions you can ask to interpret. And finally, focus. It means keep the session pointed at the specific project goals. So this is an example of contextual inquiry. So a quick reality check on how to mess up our contextual inquiry so we don't. First, set the ground rules: how I will watch, when I will ask, and what we will record. If this could have happened in a coffee shop, it's not a contextual inquiry. It it has to be in the workplace with the real tools and interruptions. So stay out of abstraction, keep it concrete, like what is this step? What happens if it fails? Can I see that form? If you feel an impulse to ask, ask now. Curiosity beats perfect phrasing. And don't derail the work. Observe first, nudge lightly, and then get out of the way. Too many questions that stop the task defeat the main point. Our goal is real work, real artifacts, real detail captured with minimal disruptions. So moving on to data recording, on recording, choose the lightest tool that still captures the evidence. For example, notes, photos, their first and great default, or audio or photo. Their richer encodes, needs consent and later transcriptions. Also, video is best for timing or hands on step by step procedures, but they are heavy to review and you can use them sparingly. Always take notes, write observation, exact quotes, and any surprises. Go in with a focus and a few guiding questions so you don't drift. While observing, mark times or file names next to key moments. After the session, label files clearly and store them securely with the participants' consent. Online ethnography, also known as netnography, studies the behavior in virtual spaces. Interactions aren't the same as face to face. They are often asynchronous, shaped by platform norms, and persist in searchable archives. Use both online and offline traces when relevant, but handle ethics tightly. Get informed consents, follow community rules, and remember that even anonymized codes can be traced. Paraphrase or mask identifiers and seek permissions before publishing it. So, finally, choosing requirement methods. is critical. Choosing method is a balance between the technique and the task. On the technique side, consider time or effort, training needed, and whether methods run sequentially or overlap. And on the other side, match to information depth or user expertise, and finally the context. And then pick the lightest method that gets enough evidence, and mix different methods if needed. So that's all for requirements gathering or data gathering, and we will see how to analyze these data gatherings or the data we gathered in the next lecture.